Welcome to Innovate Training. This is Carol Peugeot, and this is From the Classroom to the Kitchen Nook. And we are on our 16th session. This is our second session after the new year, so 2021. So today what we're going to do is, there's going to be threefold. I'm going to review the questions that I left you with last week. I hope you guys did them. So I'm going to go over those, and then I'm going to give you some new questions to work on this week. And that's pertaining to what we talked about last week. The rounding and the averaging. And then I'm going to introduce you guys to fractions. So today what we'll talk about is what is a fraction, and we'll talk about the difference between an improper and a proper and a mixed number, and how to convert those into each other. So let's get started. We'll start with going over last week's questions. Okay, so our first question was, I took a test with 214 questions. I missed 27 of those questions. What percentage did I get? So what I needed to do first is I needed to take the 27 that I missed away from the 214, which is the total questions, right? Which gave me 187. 187 questions I got correct. So now what we have to do is we have to compare how many you got correct compared to how many possible. So how many I got correct was 187. How many is possible is 214. And I'm trying to find the percent. So remember the formula? What we're trying to find, we don't have that information. So this is the variable. So what do we do with these numbers? What's the first process? If you said cross multiply, you are correct. So you take the 214 and you multiply by 100. I'm sorry. Take that back. Rewind. 187 multiplied by 100. See, I'm just seeing if you catch that. 187 times 100, and then what do you do with this remaining number? So I got 18,700, right? What do I do with the remaining number here?
You divide it.
I divide this number by it. 214 equals, and I get a number that looks like this. 87, that's a 7. 3831776. My calculator goes that far. Your calculator may not. But I really just want a number that just stops at the ones column. So I go over here. This is my decimal point right here. What do I do with this 7 if this number is 3?
You round straight to the 7.
So I leave the 7, and
Yes.
this just drops off. So what I got was 87% on the test. So with 214 questions, missing 27, my score was 87%. So passing. It's a high B. It's good. Okay, number 2. Number 2, I told you, or I informed you that I needed 21.25% as a down payment for a car costing $24,600. How much do I need as far as how much money do I need? So I wrote out the formula here. The amount, this is the whole, the $24,600. What we're missing is the part of that whole. We have the percent, right? So 21.25, don't forget the decimal point, over 100. So again, whatever two numbers cross each other, multiply together, and then divide by 100. So we're going to take the 21.25.
Don't forget that point.
Don't forget the point. Multiply it times 24,600. And then you divide by the remaining number, which is 100. Wait. 24,600 times 21.25 equals divide by 100. Okay, so what I got was 5,022.75. Now, we need to round, whenever we're dealing with money, because that's what we're dealing with here, is money, right? Whenever we're dealing with money, you always run around to the hundredth column. Hundredth with a TH. So, this is what my calculator gave me. $5,227.5. Well, I know that this 0.5 actually is that it doesn't have a hundredth column here, so I'm going to add a 0. So, it's $5,227.50. If you don't get that 50 cents, they're not going to give you the car. Okay? All right. So we'll move on to number 3. Okay, number 3. Remember this one? My husband received a commission check for $5,300. He is paid 28% for his commission, for his total sales. What was his total sales? Based on what information we have, the formula is here. The 5,300 is the part. What was the whole? The 28% is what we got here. So again, cross multiply with two numbers that cross each other, which, I'm going to get my calculator to do right.
Handy dandy.
5,000, handy dandy calculator. 5,000 times 100, don't really need a calculator to figure that out, right? And then divide by what?
5,300?
5,300 times 100
Okay.
gives us 530,000.
And then divide by the 28.
Divide by the 28. Divide by 28 equals. So, I get a number like this. 18,928.5714. Now, remember, we're dealing with numbers here. Yeah, I know we're dealing with numbers. I know that. We're dealing with money. So whenever we're dealing with money, remember, we want to round to the hundredth column, which is, remember, here's the decimal point. This is the tenth with the TH, and this is the hundredth. So we want to round, because this is the 57 cents. So since this is 1, what happens to the 7?
It stays a 7.
That stays a 7, and what happens to this 1 and 4?
You drop them off.
You just drop it off. Okay? So his total sales for this, in order to get this check, was $18,928.57. Did a good job.
That was a good month.
Good month. Okay. So we're in a few minutes, we're going to go over, I'm going to give you some exercises to do, and I want you to work on these over the week. And put your answers down in the comments, please. And again, if you do this yourself and you find that you have a different answer, please don't directly correct somebody else. Just put your answer down there, and then we'll go over the answers together next week. Okay? Okay, so here are some exercises to do. Let me do this so you can make sure that these are part of the numbers. These are some exercises to do over this week. I'm going to give you a couple more, so hold the phone. So, what I want you to do with these two numbers is I want you to round them to the nearest hundredth place. You remember which one is the hundredth? I'm not going to tell you because I want you to figure that out. Use the little chart that I gave you, I included in the downloads, downloads from last week. Okay? So use that chart and figure out how you should round it. Okay? Put your answers down in the column, in the comments, and I will go over this next week. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a couple more. Okay. Next question. Look at this number, 413.0482. What I want you to do is answer these two questions. What is the place value of the 8? Look on your chart, on the one that I gave you last week. And then what are the place values of the 4s? So you should have two answers here. Okay, there's two 4s in the question, or in the number. So you should have two answers to this question. Okay? Put your answers down in the comments, and we will go over it next week. Okay? I got one more for you, and then we'll get started on our fractions. Okay? So bear with me. Okay, last one. Remember we did this last week, we did averages. So, number 5, I priced a video game at 6 different stores. What is the average price of these prices listed here? So there's 6 prices here, 6 numbers here. $35.56, these are all money. When you're listing money in a column, you only have to put the dollar sign at the top one, by the way. So 35.56, 43.09, 45.68, 33.16, 41.99, and 39.42. What is the average? So go ahead and calculate that. And again, put it down in the comments so that we will know. And then again, we will go over this next week. All right. So in a few minutes, we're going to get started with our fractions. Okay, so this week we're going to introduce you to fractions. Now, please understand that some of this is going to be very basic, and some of you may already know this. But please understand, when you're teaching fractions, you really have to start at the very base. Otherwise, we'll have gaps. So I cannot assume that everybody knows the basics. So I'm going to start at the basic, and then we're going to work our way up. Okay? So if you're already a whiz at this, stick with us, and hey, put down in the comments anything that you might want to add, or if you think I should mention, or if you have some insight into this. But again, I'm going to start with the basics. And again, as an adult educator, it's important that I don't assume that you know certain things. So sometimes when I go over things, I start at the very basic and then work our way up to more complicated. And if I catch you somewhere in the middle, that's great. It's important not to have gaps in our knowledge, because when there's gaps, then we come across something later on where it catches up with us. I hope you understand that. So let's get started. The first one that we're going to talk about is the 1/2, which is 1/2. And you probably already know this, but if you don't, the top number is called the numerator, and the bottom number is called the denominator. Now, whenever we're dealing with a fraction, there's 3 different types of fractions we're going to talk about today. There's proper fraction, improper fraction, and a mixed number. But we'll come back to that. But think of 1/2 as one of 2 parts. Okay? So, I made a pie last night. Okay? My husband took 1/2 of that pie with him this morning to share with his buddies.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Admit it. Yeah, you've got to admit when you're guilty. But because he felt so guilty, he brought it back. And he tried to put it back in the pan without me noticing. Okay? So, what I ended up with, this morning when I woke up, I had 1/2 of a pie, because I had one part of the 2 parts. He took the other part of the 2 parts. So when he brought it back and put it in there, now I have 2 parts of 2 parts. So whenever you see a fraction of this is how many pieces you have that make the whole. This is how many parts you have. So when you have 2/2, or 2 parts of 2 parts, how much does this make? How many pies do I have?
1.
I have 1. So whenever you see a fraction, the numerator should be smaller than the denominator. That makes it a proper fraction. That means it's less than 1. So let's try a different one. So instead of taking half, not perfect, a third, he took a third of it. Okay? And I said, go ahead, take a third. So he took a third to his buddies, split that up between them. And that leaves me with 1/3 over 1/3. 2 1/3. Okay? So if he hadn't taken that part, I would have 1/3.
3 over 3, wouldn't you?
1 over 3, 1 over 3. So I would have 3 parts of 3 that make the whole. So again, 3 over 3 equals
1.
1. So I don't care if it's 3,334, or 33,000, sorry, that number, over 3,333. It still equals 1. Because you have 3,333 pieces of the 3,333 pieces that make the whole. So that's the thing about fractions. All right, numerator and denominator. Numerator and the denominator. Okay, next we're going to talk about a proper fraction and an improper fraction. A proper fraction, remember, do you remember what it's called up on the top, this number? It's called the numerator, and this is called the denominator. Denominator. Not like the Terminator, the denominator. All right, the proper fraction is where the numerator is less than the denominator. That means this is less than 1. If it was 9 over 9, it would equal, which would mean it is 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? An improper fraction is where the numerator is greater than the denominator. This means it is less than or more than 1?
More than 1.
More than 1. And I'm going to show you how to turn this into what's called a mixed number. So whenever you have a numerator that is greater than a denominator, it means that you have more pieces than you have the pieces that make the whole. Okay? So how do we figure that out? Well, what we do is this. We go, 2 goes into 9, how many times?
4.
4 times. Okay? 4 times 2 equals what?
8.
4 times 2 equals 8. So 8, between 8 and 9, what's the difference?
1.
1. So 4 and 1, and then you bring your denominator down 1/2. Okay? Do it again. 2 goes into 8, how many times?
4.
Goes into 4, right? 2 times 4 is 8, right? With
Right.
one remaining, you put the 1 there, that's the remaining, and then the the denominator just goes there. So your answer should be 4.5. Okay? So you want to reverse that. You just go 2 times 4 is
8.
plus 1,
9.
9
Mixed fraction.
over 2.
Improper fraction.
So this is an improper fraction. This is a mixed number. So whenever you have an improper fraction, your instructor will most likely want you to simplify it into a mixed number. Because That's why they call it improper. It's not the proper way to write the number.
Bad.
Bad. That's bad. Okay? So we want to have it into the simplest form. Okay. Now, what you see here, is this a proper or an improper fraction?
Improper.
It is improper. And why do you say that?
Because the numerator is larger than the denominator.
Exactly. The numerator is greater than the denominator.
Denominator.
The terminator. The denominator. Okay, so how do we simplify this into a mixed number?
Divide, take the 18 and divide it by 15.
15 goes into 18 how many times?
One time, so you put a 1, right?
1. And how many's
then,
left over?
That would be 3.
3.
Over the 15.
Over the 15.
Is that right?
That's right. However, your instructor is going to want you to simplify this more. How can we simplify this more? Can this number be reduced and be simplified anymore? So what you want to look at, I know you're busting at your chops, so want to tell me the answer, but just so that everybody else will know, in order to simplify a fraction, what you want to do is you want to find what number both of these can be divided into, or can divide into. Okay? Or divided by, rather. That's the right way of saying it. So, what number can both of these numbers be divided by?
3.
By 3? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I divide 3 by 3, what do I get?
1.
I get 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 by 3, I get 1. And if I divide 15 by 3, what do I get?
You get a 5er.
I get a 5er. So this number can be simplified by saying it's 1 and 1/5.
Fifth.
Now can I simplify it anymore? No.
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 That's as simple as it is.
You want to keep going until you can't simplify it anymore. And again, that's what your instructor is going to expect you to do. If you turn in this answer, he or she will give it back to you and say, simplify this. Okay? All right. So, next week, we're going to talk about fractions some more. I'm going to show you how to find a common denominator, simplify some more, like we did, and then add and subtract fractions. Okay? So I will see you next week. This is Carol Peugeot from Innovate Training. This is from the classroom to the kitchen nook, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Carol Peugeot, and don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to hit that bell because we got a lot of good stuff coming. All right, see you next time.